Commander Sarah Chen stared at the viewing screen with empty eyes. Earth was dying below, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The planet that had given birth to humanity now burned under alien weapons. Cities that had stood for centuries turned to ash in moments. Oceans boiled away into steam. The blue marble that astronauts once photographed with wonder had become a blackened corpse. The Prometheus station floated in the darkness beyond Neptune, far from the destruction but close enough to watch every terrible moment. Sarah's crew of 47 scientists and engineers stood silent behind her. Some cried. Others simply stared. A few had stopped watching days ago, unable to bear witness to the end of everything they knew. The hierarchy had come without warning 6 months earlier. 12 alien species united in their fear of humanity's rapid technological growth. They called humans dangerous. They said humanity expanded too quickly, fought too readily, and would become a threat to galactic peace. The Hierarchy Council had voted. The decision was final. Humanity would be eliminated before they could spread further into the stars. Earth's defensive fleets had fought bravely. Every ship, every pilot, every weapon had been thrown against the invaders. It had not been enough. The hierarchy possessed technology centuries beyond human understanding. Their shields could not be penetrated. Their weapons could not be stopped. One by one, humanity's defenders fell silent. The evacuation had been chaos. Thousands of ships tried to flee Earth, carrying refugees to Mars colonies and distant stations. The hierarchy had hunted them down methodically. Sarah watched the sensor readings as the last evacuation convoy died. 300 ships carrying 500,000 people. Gone in an instant. The hierarchy left no survivors. They wanted to be thorough. "Commander," said Lieutenant Park, his voice barely a whisper, "we're receiving a transmission from Mars colony. They're under attack. The hierarchy is hitting every human settlement in the solar system." Sarah closed her eyes. She had hoped the hidden colonies might survive. That hope died now. The hierarchy would scrub humanity from existence completely. They would leave nothing behind but dust and memories. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Sensors show 3 hierarchy cruisers heading our way. They'll be in weapons range in 40 minutes. 40 minutes. That was all the time humanity had left. Sarah looked at her crew, seeing the same realization on their faces. They could try to run, but the hierarchy ships were faster. They could fight, but the station had only mining lasers and cargo shuttles. They could hide, but the aliens had found every other human outpost. There was no escape. "Everyone to the communications center," Sarah ordered. "If we're going to die, we're going to say something first." The crew gathered in the cramped room filled with transmission equipment. Sarah sat at the main console and began typing. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, crafting the words that would be humanity's final statement. She wanted to beg for mercy. She wanted to ask why. She wanted to curse the aliens for their cruelty. But none of those things would matter. The hierarchy had made their choice. Instead, she wrote something different. Something that felt true. When she finished, Sarah looked at her crew. "This message will broadcast on every frequency we have. Every species in range will hear it. The hierarchy, their allies, anyone listening to the stars. This is our last act as representatives of humanity." "What does it say?" asked Park. "The truth," Sarah replied. She activated the transmission. Her voice echoed across the void, carried by radio waves that would travel for years through empty space. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Prometheus, broadcasting humanity's final words. To the hierarchy and all species who supported our extinction, you have taught us that mercy is weakness. You have shown us that peace is a lie told by the strong to control the weak. You have proven that the universe rewards only violence and power." Sarah paused, letting her words hang in the silence. "You destroyed our world because you feared what we might become. You killed our children because you thought we would threaten your perfect order. You have taught us the most important lesson any species can learn. Survival belongs to those willing to do anything to achieve it." Her voice grew colder. "You think you have won. You think humanity is ended. But you have made a mistake. Some of us will survive, hidden in the darkness, scattered across the void. And we will remember everything you have done here. We will remember that you gave us no choice, no mercy, no chance." The sensor alarm began screaming. The hierarchy ships had arrived early, already charging their weapons. "You wanted to eliminate a threat," Sarah continued, her words racing against death. "Instead, you have created something far worse. You have forged survivors who know the universe has no justice, no rules. No hope for those who show weakness. When we return, and we will return, we will be what you feared. We will be what you made us. This is not a plea for mercy. This is a promise of wrath. The transmission ended. Sarah looked at her crew one last time. It's been an honor, she said simply. The viewing screen flashed white. The Prometheus station shattered into 1,000,000 pieces, scattering into the darkness alongside the ashes of Earth. The hierarchy marked humanity as extinct in their records. The galaxy celebrated the elimination of a dangerous species. But in the deep places, in hidden bunkers and forgotten stations, a few thousand humans heard Sarah's broadcast. They listened to her promise, and they began to plan. 50 years had passed since Earth burned. 50 years since the hierarchy declared humanity extinct. 50 years since Commander Sarah Chen's final broadcast echoed across the stars. The galaxy had moved on, forgetting about the violent species that had been eliminated for everyone's safety. But the galaxy was wrong. Humanity had survived. Deep beneath the red sand of Mars, in a bunker built during the early colony days, 300,000 humans had hidden from the hierarchy's weapons. They had sealed themselves in tunnels and caves, cutting all power and communications, pretending to be dead while death walked above them. For 3 years they had remained silent, eating stored food in the darkness, breathing recycled air, waiting for the hunters to leave. In the asteroid belt, mining colonies had scattered among millions of rocks, each station housing a few hundred people. They had moved constantly, never staying in one place, never broadcasting signals. They had survived on ice and rock and pure determination, becoming ghosts in the void. On the edge of the solar system, 2 generation ships had escaped before the final assault. Slow vessels meant to carry colonists to distant stars. They had gone dark and cold, their 10,000 occupants entering cryosleep to conserve resources. They drifted like frozen tombs through empty space, waiting for a future that might never come. From 8 billion humans to less than 2 million. That was the price of the hierarchy's lesson. Sarah Chen stood in the Mars bunker's main chamber, looking at the faces assembled before her. She had spent 50 years in cryosleep, preserved by the colonists who believed humanity would need leaders when the time came to emerge. Now, at 78 years old but with a body frozen at 45, she addressed the survivors of her species. "The hierarchy thinks we're extinct," she said, her voice carrying through the packed chamber. "They celebrate our destruction. They point to Earth's ashes as proof that their system works. They tell younger species that this is what happens to violent, dangerous civilizations." The crowd listened in silence. These were not the soft humans of old Earth. 50 years of survival in the harshest environments had changed them. Children had been born in asteroid mines and raised on stories of Earth's destruction. Teenagers had grown up learning that the universe showed no mercy to the weak. Adults had spent decades planning for this moment. "We could try to negotiate," Sarah continued. "We could beg for forgiveness. We could promise to be peaceful and hope they give us a new world to call home." She paused, letting the idea hang in the air. "But we all know the truth. The hierarchy will never trust us. They eliminated us once. If they discover we survived, they will finish the job." Admiral Marcus Webb stood beside her, a man who had been a junior officer on a Mars defense station when the hierarchy attacked. He was 40 years old, born after Earth's destruction, raised on stories of a blue world he would never see. "We've spent 5 decades gathering their technology," he said. "Every piece of wreckage, every damaged ship, every system they left behind after they thought we were dead. We've studied it, improved it, made it ours." The survivors had become scavengers, collecting hierarchy technology from battlefields and destroyed stations. They had reverse-engineered shields and weapons, learning the secrets of their enemies. But more than that, they had adapted the technology in ways the hierarchy never imagined. Desperation bred innovation. Survival demanded creativity. "The hierarchy grew comfortable," Sarah explained. "They've had peace for 1,000 years. They've forgotten what it means to fight a war of extinction. But we remember. We remember every day. We remember in the ashes we carry. We remember in the names of the dead we whisper before sleep. We remember in the promise I made 50 years ago." She held up a small container filled with dark powder, Earth's ashes, collected from the ruins of humanity's birthplace. Every survivor carried a portion, sealed in containers worn around their necks. It was their reminder, their motivation, their sacred duty. "We are the remnant," Sarah declared. "We are what they made us. And now we're going to teach them the same lesson they taught us. The plan had been developed over decades. Small strikes at first, testing hierarchy defenses, learning their patrol patterns and response times. The remnant would become ghosts, attacking from nowhere and vanishing before reinforcements arrived. They would target trade routes and mining operations, capturing supplies and ships. They would spread fear through the species that had celebrated Earth's destruction. We're not strong enough to fight them directly, Webb admitted. We have maybe 100 ships, all cobbled together from salvage. They have thousands. But we have something they don't. We have nothing left to lose. That was humanity's advantage. The hierarchy fought to protect their comfortable lives. The remnant fought because survival was all they had. When you've already lost everything, you become willing to sacrifice anything. The first strike would target a hierarchy supply depot in the outer territories. A small operation, lightly defended, carrying resources to distant colonies. The remnant would take the supplies, destroy the depot, and leave a message behind. Sarah's broadcast from 50 years ago, proving that humanity had not forgotten. We won't win this war quickly, Sarah told her people. It might take decades, centuries, but we will make them remember what they created. We will show them that extinction has consequences, and we will ensure that every species in this galaxy learns the truth. The hierarchy doesn't protect the weak. They eliminate anyone who might challenge their power. The crowd began to chant a simple phrase that had become the remnant's creed. Born from ashes, forged in darkness, driven by memory. Sarah closed her eyes, thinking of Earth. The green forests and blue oceans. The cities full of life and laughter. All of it gone, turned to radioactive dust by species who feared what humanity might become. The hierarchy had created the exact enemy they tried to prevent. They had transformed humans from explorers and dreamers into something harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. The survivors filed out of the chamber, returning to their preparations. Ships needed crews. Weapons needed testing. Routes needed planning. The remnant had lived in hiding for 50 years. Now they would step into the light and the galaxy would finally understand the cost of their comfortable peace. Sarah remained alone in the empty chamber, holding her container of Earth's ashes. We're coming, she whispered to the memory of her dead world, and they will learn what it means to awaken wrath. The merchant convoy drifted through the Caldreth system, 12 cargo ships carrying luxury goods to the inner worlds. The crews felt safe here, deep in hierarchy space, protected by centuries of peace. They talked and laughed over communication channels, discussing vacation plans and family news. The war against humanity was ancient history, a cautionary tale told to children about dangerous species that grew too quickly. Then the ships went dark. It happened in seconds. No warning. No distress calls. Just silence spreading through the convoy like a disease. Station operators tried to contact the vessels but received only static. They sent security patrols to investigate and found the ships drifting, engines cold, life support failing. Inside the cargo vessels, the Caldreth crews were gone. Not dead, just gone. The ships were intact, their holds still full of goods, their systems undamaged. But every living soul had vanished without a trace. In the captain's quarters of the lead ship, investigators found a message burned into the metal wall in crude human letters. You have taught us that the universe rewards only strength. We will not forget this lesson. Commander Sarah Chen's words from 50 years ago. Words the hierarchy thought had died with humanity. More convoys disappeared over the following weeks. The pattern was always the same. Ships found empty, crews missing, and Chen's message left behind as a calling card. Sometimes the remnant left bodies arranged in gruesome displays to maximize fear. Other times they simply took everyone, leaving empty vessels as ghost ships drifting through trade routes. The Caldreth Council demanded action. They were one of the hierarchy's founding species, proud warriors who had fought 100 wars before joining the Galactic Alliance. They refused to believe that extinct humans could threaten their territory. They assembled a battle fleet, 20 warships armed with weapons that had conquered star systems. Find these terrorists, ordered High Commander Valtrek, his 3 eyes burning with anger. Eliminate them completely. Show the galaxy that the hierarchy does not tolerate threats. The fleet spread through the outer systems, hunting for the mysterious attackers. They found them near a dead moon, a dozen ships that looked like they'd been built from scrap metal and desperation. Mismatched hull plates, weapons welded to surfaces never meant to carry them. engines that burned too hot and shields that flickered like dying lights. The Kaldrith fleet moved to surround the human vessels, confident in their overwhelming advantage. Valtrek opened a communication channel, ready to demand surrender. Instead, he heard Sarah Chen's broadcast begin playing. The same message, the same promise of wrath, the same cold certainty that humanity would never forgive. Then the humans attacked. They fought like nothing the Kaldrith had encountered before. There was no strategy, no attempt to preserve forces or withdraw when outmatched. The human ships simply charged forward, weapons firing until they overheated, shields burning out under sustained hits. When their guns failed, they rammed hierarchy vessels. When their hulls breached, the crews kept fighting in vacuum suits, trying to board enemy ships even as they died from exposure. One human vessel, its engines destroyed and hull torn open, activated its self-destruct sequence while grappled to a Kaldrith flagship. The explosion killed both ships and everyone aboard. The human captain broadcast a single sentence before the end. "This is what you made us." The battle lasted 3 hours. The Kaldrith won, destroying all 12 human ships. But the cost was devastating. 8 hierarchy vessels destroyed, 4 more damaged beyond repair, over 3,000 Kaldrith warriors dead. And for what? To eliminate a few dozen humans in outdated ships. Valtrek stared at the debris field in shock. His species had fought wars for centuries. They understood tactics and honor. They knew when to attack and when to withdraw. But these humans fought with a madness that defied logic. They sacrificed everything for small victories, treating their own lives as disposable weapons. "Sir," his communication officer reported, voice shaking, "we're detecting more human ships in 3 nearby systems. They're attacking mining operations and research stations." The remnant had been testing the hierarchy's responses. The convoy disappearances were bait, designed to draw military forces into open battle. While the Kaldrith fleet fought and died at the Dead Moon, other human groups struck undefended targets throughout the sector. They stole resources, captured technology, and always left the same message behind. The news spread across the hierarchy faster than any military response could stop it. Humanity, the species they had declared extinct, had returned. But these were not the explorers who once sent peaceful messages into space. These were not the scientists who dreamed of meeting alien civilizations. The remnant was something new, something forged in the ashes of their dead world. On the Hierarchy Council station, representatives from 12 species watched recordings of the battle. They saw humans sacrificing themselves without hesitation. They saw crews staying at their posts even as their ships broke apart. They saw a dedication to violence that no peaceful species could understand. "How many of them are there?" asked a council member from the Thessian Republic. "Unknown," the intelligence officer admitted. "Our estimates range from 50,000 to 2 million. They move constantly, hiding in asteroid fields and dead systems. They've built ships from our own technology, making them difficult to detect." 2 million. Another council member scoffed. "We eliminated 8 billion. What threat can a remnant pose?" Admiral Webb answered that question over the following months. He led strike after strike against hierarchy targets, always hitting where defenses were weakest, always vanishing before reinforcements arrived. The remnant captured supply ships and mining equipment. They recruited from the hierarchy's client species, showing them recordings of Earth's destruction and asking a simple question. "If they did this to humanity, what makes you think you're safe?" Some of the younger species listened. Some began to wonder if the hierarchy's protection was worth the cost. The Kaldrith prepared another fleet, twice the size of the first. They would hunt down every human ship. They would finish what they started 50 years ago. They would prove that the hierarchy could not be challenged. But in the darkness between stars, Sarah Chen listened to their plans through captured communication systems. She smiled grimly, knowing that every battle would cost the hierarchy more than they could afford. Resources, ships, lives, and, something more precious, their certainty that they were the galaxy's righteous protectors. "Let them come," she told Webb. "Let them spend their fleets hunting ghosts. Every ship they send after us is a ship not protecting their precious peace. Every warrior who dies fighting the remnant is a warrior who won't defend their borders. We don't need to win battles. We just need to make them bleed. The hierarchy had taught humanity that survival required strength. Now the remnant would teach them that strength came in many forms. Sometimes it was massive fleets and advanced weapons. Sometimes it was simply the willingness to sacrifice everything, over and over, until the enemy broke under the weight of their own victories. Earth's ashes would be avenged, one battle at a time. The Hierarchy Council Chamber was built to inspire awe and unity. 12 massive seats arranged in a circle, each representing one of the founding species. Above them, a dome showing the stars they protected. Below, a floor made from stone taken from each member world. For 1,000 years, this chamber had been a symbol of peace and cooperation. Today, it echoed with angry voices. The humans must be exterminated completely, High Commander Valtrek demanded, his armored form towering over the other council members. We should have been more thorough 50 years ago. Now they hide like parasites, striking from shadows, disrupting our trade routes. We tried extermination, countered Ambassador Thess, her blue skin darkening with frustration. It cost us millions of lives and accomplished nothing except creating these remnant terrorists. Perhaps negotiation would be wiser. Negotiation? Valtrek's voice dripped with contempt. They don't want to talk. They want revenge. Every attack ends with the same message, the same promise of wrath. You cannot negotiate with madness. Representative Quinn spoke next, his insect-like mandibles clicking nervously. The economic cost is becoming unbearable. 12% of our trade routes have been abandoned due to human attacks. Mining operations are requesting military escorts. Insurance rates have tripled. Our client species are beginning to question whether hierarchy protection is worth the price. That was the real wound the remnant had inflicted. Not military defeats, though those hurt. Not captured ships and stolen resources, though those were costly. The real damage was to the hierarchy's reputation. For 1,000 years, they had promised absolute security. Now merchants feared traveling through their own space. Colonies demanded more protection than the military could provide. And everywhere, species were asking the same question. If the hierarchy couldn't stop a few 100,000 humans, what could they stop? Some of our client species are communicating with the remnant, Ambassador Thess admitted quietly. The chamber fell silent. The humans broadcast recordings of our council sessions where we debated Earth's destruction. They show younger species exactly how we justified eliminating an entire civilization. They ask these species what might happen if they become inconvenient to our order. That's propaganda, Valtrek snapped. Lies designed to divide us. No, Thess replied coldly. It's the truth. We did debate whether humans were growing too quickly. We did decide they might become a future threat. We did vote to eliminate them before that threat materialized. The remnant isn't lying about what we did. They're simply making sure everyone knows. While the council argued, Admiral Marcus Webb was executing the most dangerous operation the remnant had ever attempted. The hierarchy maintained 3 massive shipyards in the core systems, each capable of producing 100 warships per year. These yards were the foundation of their military power, heavily defended by patrol fleets and automated weapon platforms. Webb planned to capture one. He had assembled every combat-capable ship the remnant possessed, nearly 200 vessels. Against the shipyard's defenses, this force was laughably small. But Webb had learned from studying hierarchy tactics. They were efficient, logical, and predictable. They defended their important facilities with overwhelming force. Knowing that no sane enemy would attack such targets, the remnant had stopped being sane 50 years ago. Remember the plan? Webb told his captains over the communication channel. His voice was calm, hiding the certainty that most of them would not survive the next few hours. We're not trying to win a battle. We're trying to create chaos. Hit fast, hit hard, and make them think we're everywhere at once. The human fleet divided into 6 groups, each attacking a different section of the shipyard's perimeter. The defenders responded exactly as predicted, concentrating their forces to crush each small group. While the hierarchy ships hunted and destroyed the obvious targets, Webb led a 7th group through a gap in the defenses, using captured identification codes to appear as a friendly patrol. They made it inside the shipyard's shields before the deception was discovered. What followed was not a battle, but a massacre. The remnant ships spread through the shipyard like a virus, targeting construction facilities and fuel depots. They captured or destroyed dozens of partially completed warships. They overloaded the shipyard's main reactor, forcing workers to evacuate or die. They painted Sarah Chen's message across every surface they could reach. Commander Sarah Chen herself led a boarding party onto the shipyard's command center. She was 78 years old, but moved with the precision of a trained soldier, her body kept young by cryosleep and a lifetime of combat preparation. Her team fought through hierarchy security forces, leaving bodies in their wake. In the command center, she found the shipyard's director, a Thessian engineer named Vess who had spent 40 years building vessels for the hierarchy fleet. He stared at Sarah with a mixture of fear and confusion. "Why?" he asked simply. "What do you want? Resources? Territory? Just tell us what you want." Sarah laughed, a bitter sound with no humor in it. "You still don't understand. This isn't about what we want. This is about what you took." She held up her container of Earth's ashes. "This is all that remains of 8 billion people. Our families, our friends, our children. You eliminated them because you were afraid of what we might become." "That decision was made by the Council," Vess protested. "I'm just an engineer. I build ships. And those ships enforce the Council's will," Sarah replied. "Every vessel you create helps maintain the system that destroyed my world. You're not innocent just because you don't pull the trigger." She raised her weapon, and Vess closed his eyes, expecting death. Instead, Sarah lowered it. "I'm not going to kill you. I want you to survive. I want you to tell everyone what happened here. I want the galaxy to know that the remnant can strike anywhere, anytime, that no hierarchy facility is safe. That extinction has consequences." The shipyard exploded as Webb's forces detonated the main reactor. Sarah and her team barely escaped, racing away in a captured shuttle as the massive structure broke apart. Behind them, decades of construction and trillions in resources became a cloud of glowing debris. But the cost was devastating. Of the 200 ships Webb had brought to the attack, fewer than 30 escaped. Over 15,000 remnant personnel died in the operation, including volunteers who had deliberately stayed behind to maximize the damage. Among the dead was Sarah Chen herself, killed when her shuttle's engines failed during the escape. She had known the risks, had accepted them, and died ensuring her people succeeded. Webb recovered her body from the wreckage, along with the container of Earth's ashes she had carried since the beginning. He stood in the shuttle bay of his flagship, looking at the woman who had led the remnant since its founding. She had survived Earth's destruction, 50 years of hiding and countless battles. Now she was gone, a casualty of the war she had started. "Commander Chen's final order," Webb told the assembled survivors, his voice steady despite his grief, "was to ensure the galaxy understands what we are. We are not terrorists seeking random violence. We are not criminals wanting power. We are a warning. A living example of what happens when peaceful species are exterminated for being inconvenient." He held up Sarah's container of ashes. "She wanted us to continue, to make the hierarchy understand that they cannot maintain peace through preemptive extinction, that every species they destroy might have survivors who remember, who learn, who become exactly the threat they feared." The news of the shipyard's destruction spread through the hierarchy like a shockwave. One of their most important facilities, destroyed by the extinct humans everyone had forgotten. The Council called emergency sessions. Military commanders demanded more resources. Client species began to wonder if their protectors were as strong as they claimed. And in the darkness between stars, the remnant mourned their dead and planned their next strike. They were fewer now, weaker but more determined than ever. Sarah Chen had died, showing them the path forward. Now they would walk it, no matter how many of them fell along the way. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the viewing screen that showed Earth, or what remained of Earth. The planet was a dead thing now, its surface still radioactive from 56 years of decay. The oceans were gone. The atmosphere was poison. Nothing lived there except memories and ghosts. Behind him stood representatives from the Hierarchy Council. They had agreed to meet here at the site of their greatest crime to discuss terms with the remnant. 6 years had passed since Sarah Chen died destroying the shipyard. 6 years of escalating conflict that had fractured the hierarchy's perfect order. The remnant had not won through military victory. They were still outnumbered 1,000 to 1, but they had achieved something more important. They had exposed the truth about the hierarchy's protection, and that truth was spreading through the galaxy like a virus. "This is pointless," High Commander Valtrek growled, his armor gleaming in the dim light. "We should be hunting them down, not negotiating." "You've been hunting us for 6 years, Webb replied calmly. "How has that worked out?" The silence was answer enough. The hierarchy had won every major battle. They had destroyed dozens of remnant ships. They had killed thousands of humans. But the attacks continued. Every convoy that disappeared, every facility that was sabotaged, every recording that was broadcast, showing the Council's deliberations about Earth's destruction. The remnant had become an idea, and ideas could not be killed with weapons. Ambassador Thess spoke next, her voice tired. "What do you want, Admiral Webb? What will it take to end this war? A new homeworld? Resources? Representation on the Council?" Webb laughed, and the sound made the aliens uncomfortable. "You still don't understand. We don't want territory or resources. We don't want to join your council. We want you to broadcast a message. The same message you sent when you destroyed Earth." He pulled up a recording on the viewing screen. It showed the Hierarchy Council debating humanity's fate 56 years ago. Representative Quinn explaining that humans were growing too quickly. Ambassador Thess arguing that they might become a threat in a few centuries. High Commander Valtrek insisting that prevention was better than war. And finally the vote. Unanimous. Earth would be eliminated before humanity could spread beyond their solar system. "This is what we want broadcast across every hierarchy channel," Webb explained. "We want every species in this galaxy to see exactly how you make decisions. We want them to know that the hierarchy practices preemptive extinction. That when you say protection, you mean control. That any species which grows too strong or too independent will be eliminated as a potential threat." "That would destroy the hierarchy," Valtrek protested. "Our client species would rebel. The alliance would collapse. You would plunge the galaxy into chaos." "Yes," Webb agreed. "That's exactly what we want. Because your order is built on a lie. You tell species that you protect them. You promise security and peace. But the truth is that you eliminate anyone who might challenge your power. You're not protectors. You're tyrants who kill anyone who grows strong enough to question your authority." He gestured to the dead planet below them. "Earth is your monument. 8 billion people murdered because you were afraid of what they might become. Not what they were. What they might be in a future that never happened. Every species under your protection needs to understand that this is their fate if they become inconvenient." Ambassador Thess looked at the ruined world. Her expression troubled. She had voted for Earth's destruction. They all had. At the time, it seemed reasonable. Humanity was growing quickly, developing dangerous technologies, spreading through their system with alarming speed. Better to stop them early than face a war later. It was logical, efficient. The right decision for galactic stability. But looking at Earth's corpse, she wondered if they had created something worse than any threat humanity might have posed. "If we broadcast that recording," she said slowly, "the hierarchy will fall. Wars will erupt. Millions will die in the chaos." "Billions died when you destroyed Earth," Webb countered. "Billions more will die if your system continues. Because you've taught the galaxy that survival requires strength, and that the moment you show strength, you'll be eliminated as a threat. You've created a system where peace is impossible because everyone knows that growing powerful means becoming a target." The council members looked at each other, understanding finally dawning. The remnant wasn't trying to destroy the hierarchy through military force. They were dismantling it by revealing what it truly was, and they had already won, because the truth was spreading whether the council wanted it to or not. "We could refuse," Valtrek suggested. "We could continue fighting. Eventually we will eliminate all of you." "Perhaps," Webb acknowledged. "But how many more shipyards will you lose first? How many more client species will rebel? How many more of your own people will die hunting ghosts? You can kill every remnant soldier, but you can't kill what we represent. We're proof that your system creates its own enemies. That extinction has consequences." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Broadcast the recording or we will. We've already seeded it to 1,000 locations across the galaxy. If anything happens to us, if you refuse this meeting, it will be released automatically. Either you control the narrative or we do." It was not really a choice. The council debated for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. 3 days later, the recording was broadcast across every hierarchy channel. Every client species saw the council's cold deliberation of Earth's fate. Every protected world learned exactly what protection meant. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. Client species began declaring independence. Member worlds questioned the council's authority. Trade alliances collapsed. Military forces fragmented as individual species recalled their ships to defend their own territories. The 1,000-year peace shattered like glass and the galaxy descended into chaos. But it was not the chaos of random violence. It was the chaos of truth destroying comfortable lies. Species that had depended on hierarchy protection now had to defend themselves. Alliances formed based on mutual interest rather than imposed order. Wars erupted, yes, but so did new partnerships and understanding. The remnant did not claim victory. Webb returned to Earth one final time, carrying the containers of ashes collected by Sarah Chen and thousands of others. He scattered them across the dead planet, returning them to their home. "We didn't save humanity," he said to the empty ruins. "We couldn't bring back the billions who died. But we made sure their deaths meant something. We showed the galaxy that you cannot maintain peace through fear and preemptive murder, that every action has consequences, that the ashes you create might rise against you." The surviving remnant scattered across the galaxy, refusing to rebuild as a unified species. They had learned too well the dangers of concentration. Instead, they spread out, becoming mercenaries, traders, explorers, and wanderers, small groups and individuals carrying Earth's memory into the stars. Some species welcomed them, others banned them from their territories. But everyone remembered what they represented: the extinct species that refused to stay dead. The warning about the cost of extinction, the proof that wrath, once awakened, could not be easily put back to sleep. Earth remained a dead world, but Webb transformed it into something more. A monument broadcasting continuously into space, its message simple and eternal. Here lies humanity's birthplace. 8 billion souls eliminated for being a potential threat. Remember this when someone promises you security. Remember this when fear makes you choose violence. Remember that the ashes you create today might become the fire that burns you tomorrow. Ships passing through the solar system detected the broadcast and changed course to avoid the cursed world. But they listened to the message. They remembered. And they told their children about the extinct species that taught the galaxy its most important lesson. The universe had no justice, no rules, no protection for the weak except what they could provide themselves. But it also had memory. And sometimes memory was enough to change everything. Webb stood on his ship preparing to leave Earth's orbit for the final time. He wore a container of ashes around his neck, as all remnant did. He had spent his entire life fighting the hierarchy, carrying out Sarah Chen's promise of wrath. Now at 60 years old he was tired, but he was also satisfied. Humanity had not won. They had not reclaimed their world or rebuilt their population. But they had ensured that their extinction had meaning, that the galaxy would never forget what happened when peaceful species were eliminated for the crime of being potentially dangerous. The ship's engines ignited, carrying Webb away from Earth forever. Behind him, the dead planet continued its eternal broadcast. A warning and a promise that would echo through the stars for as long as anyone was listening. The hierarchy had taught humanity that the universe rewards only strength. The remnant had taught them that strength came in many forms, and that sometimes the most powerful force in the galaxy was simply the refusal to be forgotten.